Today's project is this wooden tugboat. It's not made to float, but it makes a great child's toy or a conversation piece for an adult to display on a desk or shelf at home or in an office. There are no difficult cuts, but you will need a scroll saw capable of cutting 1.5 inch thick material. Or you could cut the hull with a bandsaw and the rest of the parts on a scroll saw. Since most of the parts are small, you may be able to build this tugboat from leftover pieces from other projects. You'll also need some short pieces of 1/4, 1/2, and 3/4 dowel rods. I sold out of this tugboat a few weeks ago, and I'm finally finding the time to make another batch. Because they sell both online and in a retail store, making only one at a time for most items doesn't make sense. It won't take me 4 times as long to make 4 of these as it would for one, so I'll make a batch of 4. This is an easy toy to make. There aren't a lot of parts, so let's get started. The hulls are cut from 1.5 inch thick material, and I'll use 6/4 poplar because I'll paint the hulls, and poplar takes paint nicely. The 2 deck parts are cut from 3/4 poplar and are small enough that I'll be able to cut them from small pieces left over from other projects. The last parts are made from 1/4, 1/2, and 3/4 dowel rods. I used my radial arm saw to cut the 6/4 poplar to length, and I'll attach the hull patterns later with scroll saw tape. I most often attach all the patterns to the wood, but the 3/4 parts are simple rectangles, so I laid them out with a ruler and a square. That will save me the mess of gluing on these patterns or the expense of using 2-sided scroll saw tape. Why do that for such simple patterns? The 3/4 parts are a good place to start cutting. Over the years, I've developed rules of thumb for choosing each project's blade size. I consider the wood's thickness, hardness, and the complexity of the pattern. That puts me on the borderline of a number 7 and a number 9 blade for these pieces, and I chose the number 9 because the pattern is simple and a number 9 will cut faster. I left a link to my video on this topic on the screen and in the description. The scroll saw is not the best tool for cutting straight lines, but these parts are small, and cutting them on the table or radial arm saw wouldn't be safe. If the lines are a bit wavy, I can touch them up on the disc or belt sander later. The dimensions aren't critical. After I made the first cut, I realized that one of the parts had a hole near the edge, so I'll have to remake that part on another scrap piece. I cut the pieces to length with one long cut, then backed the blade out because the smaller parts were on the other side of that line. After that, I made the rip cuts to bring the pieces to the correct width. I cut the 4 smaller pieces in the same manner. The next set of parts are made from dowel rods, so I marked the lengths I needed, and now I'll cut them at the scroll saw. I've found through experience that the best way to cut dowel rods is to line the cut mark up with the blade and then roll the dowel along the table into and through the blade. If I push the dowel into the blade, I sometimes get a break or an uneven cut. When I roll the dowel, I always seem to get a smooth cut. The dowels will form the radar mast, the exhaust funnel, and the tie-offs for the lines to tie the boat to a dock. One of the 1/2 inch dowels has a 1/4 inch hole drilled through it. The 2 pieces together form the radar mast. The last part that needs to be cut is the largest, the boat's hull. The hull is cut from 1.5 inch thick stock, so I replaced the number 9 with a number 12 Pegasus modified geometry blade. I laid out 4 of these on the piece of 6/4 poplar I cut to length, then attached the patterns to the wood with spray adhesive. These are simple patterns and relatively large, so I didn't want to use scroll saw tape to attach them to the wood. I should be able to peel these off in one piece when I'm done cutting. I used my bandsaw to cut the large 6/4 blank into 4 pieces. Its length made it awkward to cut on the scroll saw, and as long as I was cutting the piece to length, it took only another minute to cut it to width as well. There are 2 places where 1/2 inch holes need to be drilled on top of the hull, but I can wait until I've cut this piece out before I drill them. I frequently drill all holes first, but these are nowhere near the edge, so they don't risk any danger of breaking through the side. Thick material like this cuts slowly, and the temptation is to put extra pressure on the blade to make it cut faster. Don't. Let the blade do the work. If you increase pressure, one or more things can happen, and none of them is good. The first is that the blade may flex, and your cut won't be straight. The second is that the blade may overheat and burn the wood. The third is that the blade may break. A broken blade is always a signal that you did something wrong. I want to paint the boat's hull, and I'll mask the top to make that easier. I could use acrylic paint for the bottom, but painting with a brush is slow, and it generally takes 2 to 3 coats, sanding in between coats. I can use spray paint if I mask the top, and I'll use several strips of blue painter's tape. I must have used the last of the wider roll, so I'll have to use an extra strip or two to cover the deck with the size tape I have on hand. Once the tape is applied, I use an X-Acto knife to trim the tape right down to the hull's size. I have a scrap piece of plywood underneath to prevent damage to the mat on my workbench's top. I peeled off the masking tape on a few tiny paint spots around the top deck. I probably pulled off some of the tape when I trimmed it with the X-Acto knife. It's not a big deal, just a bit of hand sanding with 120 grit sandpaper will take care of it. Now it's time for assembly. One of these short half-inch dowels gets added to each end of the tugboat into the holes I drilled earlier. I believe these represent the tie-downs for the lines that tie the boat to a dock. If I'm wrong and any of you know anything about boats, let me know. I have next to zero knowledge of nautical things. I was on a boat fishing on Lake Michigan once when I was in high school, so that was about 60 years ago. I spread a little glue on the bottom of the dowels and the side near the bottom. That will be more than enough to hold these in place. I'll add the next piece in the middle of the deck. You'll notice a 3/4 inch hole drilled partway into the top, and there are 3/4 inch holes for portholes on each side. I used Forstner bits to make all these holes because they only went to a certain depth. I squeezed some glue onto the bottom of the piece and remembered I had a brush set aside from gluing on another project earlier in the day. The glue had dried on the brush and it was hard, but it still worked to spread the glue. I just eyeballed the part's placement since I didn't feel it was necessary to be in the exact middle. Next, I added glue to the bottom of the smokestack, plus a little around the bottom edge. That will keep this part securely in place. I quickly looked to ensure it was facing in the right direction since the top is partially cut at an angle. I made that angle by using the disc sander to sand away a portion of the dowel. The next part is glued on top of the one I just added. A half-inch dowel is glued into this piece. This dowel has a 1/4 inch hole drilled near the top, which receives a 1/4 inch dowel. Duh. I believe this assembly represents the radar mast. That completes the tugboat assembly. I have 3 more to complete, and then I'll set them aside to dry. As exciting as it might be to watch that, I'll be working on another project instead. I'd love to read your comments, and I respond to all of them. You don't want to miss my upcoming videos, so subscribe and hit the notification bell. I completed a raised dog bowl stand on my CNC machine, made a small storage box resembling an ice cream sandwich, and I'm working on a video about wood finishing. These will all be coming soon, but if you need something to watch until then, suggestions for 2 more projects are on the screen now.